Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversations. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
On July 4th, 1962, I found myself in the lost and found of mankind. Just because something finds its way to the lost and found doesn't mean that it wants to be there. Just because something finds its way to the lost and found doesn't mean that the person who lost it doesn't care for that lost item.
You are writing moments that people will learn from, grow from, and heal through for thousands of years. Together, we are co-authoring a unique moment in time. That DNA, those fingerprints, they're going to be gone. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. But it is your story that they will tell for thousands of years. But only if you leave it. Things that do not serve you must go. The longer you wait, the more time you give them to trick you into serving them. 22 homes in foster care, everything I wore as a scar, as a shame, things that started like Velcro on my spirit. After just a few months, then years, then decades, I had believed myself into believing that they were indelible tattoos. Sometimes we have to be broken down to appreciate the view once we start getting up. I want you to leave this place and know that you have been changed. Why? How do I know it's true? Because each of you has just changed me.
Can you smell that aroma? Go. Smell it? Guess what that is? That's spiritual magic. That's what's in the air. That's what's in the air today. Listen, it is a great day in the neighborhood. I mean it. I mean it. Good morning. Y'all are looking good today. Can I get an amen? Yes, I'll kick it off. They're free. Put them in the comments. And I just want to say you're looking good. And I see you over there in the corner putting those eyelashes on. You kill me. So listen, I know I have powers, right? Y'all, I better quit that shit. I'm just serious, though. I better quit that because with AI, for real, somebody tell me they can see me. I'm like, I'm not kidding you. Alexa, ooh, never mind, disregard. See what I mean? You got to be careful. And now, do you remember when you used to have to actually, how come Coach Jim isn't playing on the TV set back there? You know how, wait a minute, you guys know how back in the day when Alexa, see, that's a shame that I have to like be concerned about what I say. It's like having children. But now, you know who talks without being asked anything. I was walking through the kitchen last weekend, and you want to hear a joke? Scared me. I almost ran out the window. So anyway, oh, there he is. Come on in, Coach Jim. I like it when they're playing back there. Okay, great. So anyway, welcome to today's installment of ADHD Central. Okay, really, it's Bathrobe Moments, but y'all know how this mind works. All these things going on. Lots of hamsters on wheels inside my mind, but it's a great thing. That's what a creative is all about. Listen, share this broadcast out. We have a great opportunity today, an unusual one. Not unusual, but rare. This guy today, Jim Johnson, well, from one of his videos, I'm just going to steal the line. Someone who actually lived like that Rudy movie. He did. Now, you all know, here's why I love him. Well, one of the reasons. You know, I eat on here to Coach Jim. Right. I'm just saying. I was smart. I chose a show where I could just roll out of bed and be ready for it. Right. So anyway, listen. There's so much to Coach Jim, but I'm going to show you because I can show you better than I can tell you. You are going to love this story. You all over the years, we're in year number 7 here on Bathrobe Moments. And you know, over the years I've done some specials, 90-minute television specials, and I've had several guests because I've coached. I still do coach for people men who are on the autism spectrum. And I just love that they have superpowers. All of us do. Mental health is truly mental wealth when you understand why you have it and then decide what you're going to do with it, right? So that's how I feel about it. But before I get going, I just want to say quickly, because I have to. Well, I don't have to, but I choose to. If you are in the San Diego area, I know some of you who were at this event just last weekend at Tinley Park are going to be there. And so I'm excited that I now am going to be there as well. September 25th. Hi. Through the 28th in San Diego. And so there's the link down there. RPXP retreat. See, look, I saw RPX pre-treat. Isn't it interesting how our minds work so differently? Thank God for that. Be sucky if it was all the same. So listen, let me just tell you a couple of things about Coach Jim Johnson. Seriously, this is straight off LinkedIn because that's like the Bible to me. I'm just saying. Jim Johnson, he's a read this. Sorry for putting your business out there, Coach Jim. I didn't know he got fired from his first coaching job. I'm kidding. I did. He has learned how to transform a losing moment into fuel for a winning life. And there's just so much more. He's won an ESPY award. For you people who are not sports people, that is a sports award. I know because I Googled it and found out like 10 minutes ago. So anyway, okay, I'm not into the same sports as most of you. I am into tennis. Okay. Figure skating and gymnastics. Something's going on here. All right. Okay, Jim. Coach Jim Johnson. I'm done playing around, you guys. I'm going to get him in here. This is a beautiful, beautiful story. And I love it. I love it because I think if this story continues like I know it will, if I heard it 100 times, it would always sound different to me. Kind of like when you hear Les Brown talk about the radio station and Mamie Brown and, that whole thing, how you can hear Les a million times and it's always different. That's how this story is. I'm going to share a little piece with you. It'll never get old. It's just beautiful. And it gets better with time. One of those stories that gets better with time. Take a look. Okay, where is it? Okay.
What
I'm
we
popping
all
you in,
want in
Coach
life
Tim. Popping you in.
is a shot. But what we do with it, that's the story we all want to tell.
I've coached for 25 years and I've never experienced that, the emotional high of what happened.
What happened for Jason McElwain, or J-Mac as his friends call him, is about more than a shot. Diagnosed with autism at 2 years old, now identified as highly functioning, he's never considered himself different or separate, especially when it comes to sports.
Sports has always been, how could I say, his equalizer. He's just like any of the other kids out there.
It's not really a big deal at all. I'm just normal like other people. It's the way I am.
At 5'6", J-Mac didn't make the junior varsity basketball team at his high school, Greece Athena, near Rochester, New York. Instead, he became team manager, a role he now has for the varsity as a senior. In the last 3 years, in his white shirt and black tie, he's missed only one game.
Go to practice, I set up the clock and get the water in games and be enthusiastic.
As this season was wrapping up, Coach Johnson approached Jason with an idea about the Trojans' final home game of the season.
I said, I'm really going to look to try to get you in the game, but remember, I can't promise you that. And he goes, okay, coach.
February 15th, Greece Athena against Spencerport, senior night. With word out that Jason might play, the student section printed signs of J-Mac's face, just in case. And with 4:19 left in the game, with the Trojans up by 20, Coach called down to the end of the bench for number 52.
I just kind of turned and pointed at him, and he almost ran right on the court. He was so excited.
Hey, Jay, you got to check in. So he hits the buzzer, and he doesn't go anywhere. It's like, now you go on the court. He was so caught up in the moment.
He came into the game, they all stood up and they put the signs, the pictures of him up, and I got really emotional. And I sat down and started to cry.
You think?
With 3:46 left, Jason got the ball.
When he missed that first three, I was like, oh, and then it airball, and I was like, man, I really just want to see him score one time.
I put my head in my hands, like, dear God, please, just get him a basket.
Then, with 3:12 left, another chance.
That third trip down the court. Magic.
As soon as I started hitting my first shot, I just kept shooting, and I was just hot as a pistol.
Shot after shot after shot kept going in.
This basket was like this big, huge bucket.
Just incredible.
And I was shooting like they were free throws. This is a big, huge bucket that's like huge.
And I was like, oh my God, is this really happening? He has more points than me, so he's got bragging rights over me.
He was unstoppable for that moment in time. He was unstoppable.
He comes down the court right at the end with like 3 seconds left, and he hits this one that's, probably like an NBA three. As soon as the gun ended, they stormed the court.
Wow.
You just couldn't dream anything like that.
It felt like we won a championship. Everyone was just so happy for me.
In that 4 minutes, 19 seconds, Jason was 7 for 13, 6 of 10 from three-point range, 20 points in all. In his first and only varsity basketball game, J-Mac was the high scorer.
That's just
Truly the most incredible moment I've ever had in coaching. I was so touched, and it was just so special to me that a young man, his dream came true.
so special.
and that I could help that, it was awesome.
What we all want in life is a shot. J-Mac took his, and now it's a story we can all tell.
Yeah. Man, Coach Jim, I should have known not to play that. Oh my God. You know, I'm going to tell you something. Welcome to the show. That every single person in that gymnasium received an eternal gift that night. And so many people who weren't there but get pulled into that space. It's alive. Whenever you watch that, it's not aged. It hasn't changed. It is timeless. How do you feel? I mean, it will never get old to you to see that, will it?
It will not. First of all, it's a gift to be on your show, to be around someone as inspirational as you.
Oof.
So I thank you, and I'm looking forward to sharing some info with you. But Dr. Lauren, I've
Wow.
been fortunate to travel the country and share different presentations. And I show that video, and I've seen that video well over 1,000 times, and I still get choked up
Every time.
Yeah, it's
Coach Jim, how do you like to be referred to?
either one's fine. So.
Okay. Well, it's like when a boxer is a champ, you got to call him champs. And so when a coach, you got to call him coach. So, Coach Jim, wow, how interesting. You do a lot of things. We're going to get into your principles of great leadership, your work with equity and inclusion. And this was a big piece of that way back before it was a catchphrase.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? What year was that? The J-Mac?
2006. That game was on February 15th, 2006.
Wow. And every year you get up, it's like a holiday, isn't it? Kind of.
Yeah, it is.
You know that date, don't you?
I do.
Yeah. Wow. So how's Jason McElwain? How's he doing today?
He's doing well. The interesting thing is I don't know how many listeners have had a growth spurt after high school, but in that game, he was like 5'9", maybe 115 pounds. He was very small in stature. If you see him today, he's now 6'2", about 175 pounds. So he grew 5 inches after high school, and he's put on a lot of weight. And fortunately, it's positive weight. He's put on a lot of muscle. He was physically pretty weak in high school, probably couldn't bench press 75 pounds. Now he bench presses 250. So he's
wow.
And he actually, the blessing that we can all cherish is that after he graduated, he actually came back a couple of years later and was my volunteer assistant for my last 8 years. So I got a chance to spend even more time with him.
Even more time. A bond that nothing could ever break.
No.
But you had bonds. I want to go back. What I found really interesting in your backstory, your origin story, is that, because you played 3 sports. Your primary sport growing up was basketball. But I found it really interesting that your dad was your basketball coach.
He was.
That's like, is that kind of like being a preacher's kid?
Kind of the same thing. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My dad certainly was one of my major heroes, and he was a great role model for me. And, I guess like a lot of young people, you have a big dream, and mine was I wanted to play professional basketball, but unfortunately that dream didn't come true. But I got an opportunity to stay in the game I loved by being a coach for 35 years.
That's amazing. So was your dad around to see, is he still alive?
He's still alive. So
he saw the whole, your own rooting.
He did. He did see that. So, yeah.
So let me ask you, because, like, again, to use the old, the religious connection, when you see a second generation minister, my dad was a minister and I'm a minister, or butcher. My dad was, those things that are passed down. The coaching, because coaching is a calling. Coaching is a calling, just like teaching is a calling. And because you all get your hands on the kids in the most important times of their lives, and what would you say you inherited from your father's coaching technique that was a nice platform for you to start your own coaching career, and then how did you grow into the Coach Jim we see today?
Well, I think the first thing, and it took me a while, my dad was a great role model. So he handled adversity quite well. I got to admit, early on in my career, I didn't do so well, but it's something that I really tried to learn from him and got much better. And I think it helped me immensely on the importance of being the model, because we're working with young people, and anybody in your audience is working young people. I highly encourage you. You know, I always used to tell our players, but as a leader, you're always on stage, and
Yeah.
people are always watching you and how you handle different situations, the good, the bad, the ugly. So I encourage everybody to really be clear of who you are. That's why I talk a lot about core values, which my dad really had strong values. As I said, he led by example. And he had great passion for the game of basketball, which is something he really gave to me as well.
And when I was watching your mouth move just now. I'm gonna keep it real, because one of my divine gifts, they'll take me into, I just see things, I just see them, and it took me back to this. You know how you say, "Well, I never got to do this with professional this or that," but you were on Oprah. The ESPN piece we just saw, it was like you got to experience that moment, just like the coach of anybody that's gotten a ring on a you had the same moment of like a coach of a Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
And would you have ever thought that that was possible at that level of the ladder, the echelon of coaching and whatnot? Did you, going into it, and then especially since you got fired from your first coaching job, talk about that. You're an inspirational speaker. Tell us what you tell people about how it all kind of was a slinky, that one
Yeah.
thing moved into the next, and you couldn't have had this without that, and you needed this. You needed what you needed to get to where you wanted to be. And so tell us about that. How was that
Yeah,
for
so
you?
take everybody, imagine, back, one of your big dreams. And my dream came true, when I got into teaching and coaching. I wanted to be a head basketball coach. And at 25 years old, I became a head coach at a school about 20 miles from where I lived. And I was excited. And I thought I knew everything about coaching. And I did such a great job that I led that team to 17 consecutive losses.
Oh, I rang too soon. Sorry. I just knew you were going to say wins or championship losses.
And I ended up, the administration, I didn't like what they had to tell me after the season. Of course, what they told me is, we don't want you back.
Well, wait a minute. Why would, do you mean that when you say you led them? I mean, do you think it was the coaching, or did they just not have what it took?
Well, I mean, it was a combination. I was fairly arrogant 25-year-old that I had some success at younger levels. I was a pretty successful JV coach for a couple of years. But, a lot of people, when they make that transition to the next level of their job, are they ready for it? And to be frank with you, I was not. But you know what? It ended up being probably one of the best professional experiences for me, because I learned about the adversity and how you handle it. And the two lessons I share with people is use setbacks as comebacks. And
Mm,
the fact that when you have adversity, put a burn in your belly that you're going to prove that you can do better. And that burn, Lauren, never went away from me. For the next 30 years, I coached 30 more years after that.
wow.
Burn was that I was going to prove. And the second thing is, it woke me up, because I was pretty cocky, thought I knew all it. And I really started my journey of studying leadership and how I could be a better leader and how I could build a team culture so we could have success. So it was a very humbling moment in my life. And
Yeah,
I really encourage all your listeners, is when you do go through a humbling situation, how do you handle it? Do you
yes,
learn from it? And because if you do, you're going to get better. And that's a huge thing. And make sure that, whatever you want to be great in, make it a study. Really try to embrace it and learn as much as you can.
absolutely.
In fact, leadership is such a fascinating topic for me. I'm continuing to study, even though I've been retired from coaching, just because I do a lot of leadership talks. And I'm always curious, how can I become a better leader so I can help others become better leaders?
And right. I'm sitting here and I'm wondering. So, you know, sometimes, Coach, I find that, and this is important, you guys. It really is. You got to understand. There's a reason it's called falling in love. You know, falling in love, because when you fall into the arms of what is going to catch you, and that is purpose. Everything has a reason. And when you understand that it's never about just one thing, it can really make this journey a lot more exciting, believe it or not.
Absolutely.
And so I get what you're saying about how you had to, sometimes we find ourselves in those awkward or not so comfortable situations, many times, just to have that one example. Oh, now I know exactly what I don't want to become,
Right.
what I don't want to be. Or and if it's that person, I see what I don't want to be him or her.
Right.
So it laid the foundation. What if you had to say, let's say three things, take three things that you can retrospect, look over and say, when I was that coach with that string of losses, what would you say the three things missing that are so clear now? How did I not see it? That kind of thing. Those, I believe you have some pillars. I have
Yeah.
a feeling that it's something to do with those.
Well, the first thing for me was getting clarity of who I was. I started to do a lot of reading, and a book I read, Dr. Covey's book, The Seven Habits, talked about having your own personal mission statement. And I was like,
Mm.
I never heard of that. And so I really started to get an idea. Okay. And he started to give us some steps. And I share with people, I think one of the things you should consistently ask yourself is, why were you put on this earth? And then from there is, secondly, getting an idea of what you stand for. I talk about it when you hear it all the time in leadership and building teams, is what are the core values? What are your core values?
Right.
What do you stand for? Because I kid people, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything, right?
Yep.
And so I think that's a huge thing, is really getting clarity about that. And when I started to become clearer, and it's something I encourage all your listeners, if you don't have a personal mission, is start to really think about it, and then put it in writing. My mission statement is to be an outstanding role model that makes a positive difference in the world by helping others make their dreams come true. And what was
Mm.
helpful for me, Lauren, and I encourage our listeners, is that it gives you that base, that foundation, that, and I certainly have not lived a perfect life. I make mistakes still to this day,
You
but it always,
do?
yeah, once in a
That
while.
ain't what I heard. Okay.
And so that, but the great thing is you have that purpose and you come back to it and say, okay, did I live my mission today? The second part is, when you're building something, you have to build trust. And
Mm.
one of the things I encourage people to do is start by building trust with yourself by making and keeping promises to yourself.
Absolutely right.
Yeah. And then secondly is building, when you're working with a group of people, in my case, a team, is how do you build trust? Because I challenge people, and I share in one of my leadership presentations, do you have a plan to build trust? And most people look at me like, trust is important, but they really don't have any idea how they're going to build it. So I give them 3 tips. In this, you got to develop what works for you. But
Mm-hmm.
to give you a baseline, these were the 3 ideas that we did to build trust. Number one, we had to align our words and actions. So we had to be consistent. If something we said, we got to make sure we do. So if practice was at 6 a.m., coach better be there before 6 a.m. because I got to set the example. Number 2 is we wanted to teach and tell each other the truth. And as the Bible says, the truth will set you free. So we wanted to encourage that we would share the truth with each other. Now, we're not going to embarrass people. So there were times as a coach, I would call somebody out, but there were times I knew, as I got to know, because building relationships is so important, that sometimes you got to do that behind closed doors, one-on-one, but telling each other the truth. And then the third thing, because in my situation, and I know many people, when they get into a leadership position, it's because it hasn't been going well. And that was my case. I took over 4 different programs that were all been losing. The first one, as I mentioned, was a disaster. The next
Right.
3, we did much better. But one of the things, this is from Dr. Ken Blanchard's book, and Spencer Johnson, the 1-Minute Manager. And that is, we focused on trying to catch people doing right consistently. And with that, when you're catching people doing right, be specific with your praise. Instead of saying, nice job, Lauren, I say, Lauren, that was awesome how you dove on the floor for that loose ball. That's what championship players do on championship teams. So now, Lauren, you are very clear about my expectations and why I praised you. And people, as we know from the research, when they get praised, they want more. So you're going to most likely get that behavior repeated, which is so essential.
Yeah.
And so those are a couple things. And then the last thing I'll say for now is I think you got to be consistently growing yourself. I call it creating an edge. And to grow yourself so you can grow the people that you're leading. Because if you don't grow, you're dying. I don't think you stand still. You either go backwards or forwards.
That's right.
And I think it's
You
so
atrophied.
Yes,
It's like a
exactly.
muscle that just sits there. You know, you right.
And and I think the thing that we got to do is I challenge people, and I want to challenge all your listeners. Do you have an intentional personal growth plan where you're finding ways to feed your mind? Because Lauren, you made a great example. You know, if you could stay in shape by just working out once a year, probably most people would choose that, right?
Yeah.
But the
See
case
you on
is,
Christmas morning.
yeah, exactly. But we
Uh,
all know that consistency is a huge word in doing anything well, and that includes your health. You know, if you're consistently doing workouts and getting the right food and
right.
getting sleep, you know what? It doesn't guarantee it, but it puts the odds in your favor.
It
And
sure
that's why
does.
when I encourage people to have that personal growth and have a personal wellness plan where you're taking care of yourself, because it's hard to be an effective leader if you don't have energy. And to have energy, you got to take care of yourself.
Yes, absolutely right. I wanted to ask you, um, you had over 400 victories as a high school basketball coach, multiple state championships, and community. I wanted to talk to you about the community piece and the responsibility piece. How heavy of because people think high school coach, see a college coach, yeah, professional like NBA, that's different because they all go home, fly back to where they live and stuff. But the high school coach, it's almost like when they say don't poop where you sleep or whatever it was. It's like all the eyes are on you. You got to listen to and deal with all the different temperaments and whatnot, egos of parents. And so we've all seen those, like cheerleader moms and those parents on the sidelines, and still stay focused on your commitment to the children, to the kids. And so let's talk about the community piece. How big, what was your greatest benefit? What did you learn the most from the community aspect about when all those people are picking and pulling and scratching and all that comes with it? What'd you learn, Coach Jim?
Well, I will say, for all the coaches out there, coaching is a challenging job. I had love for it and it's very passionate, but you're going to have your critiquers, your haters, no matter how well you do. But I think you have a powerful thought, and that is that you are in a community. And I think number one, it starts with you being a person that they respect because of how you handle yourself on the court and off the court. Okay. Like one of the things, and I encourage people in being a model, like one of the things I did my last 23 years is I told all my players and parents that I would not drink alcohol during the season because I wanted to be a great model for their sons. Now, I didn't have to do that, but it's something that I want everybody to think about is how can you be a better model to build that community so people, you're building respect. The next thing, speaking of respect, is and this is something I think we've lost a little bit in our society right now is we're not always going to agree with each other. But one of the things is you need to treat everybody with respect. So I was always open to working on building relationships with my players and their families and making sure that I learned as much as I could from them and be open. And, one of the things I did, I encouraged people is that be upfront with them. Like I want to hear from you, but, sometimes I'll say, thank you for your feedback. I don't agree with it. This is why. And, we can move forward, even though we may not agree on something. But it's really important is because be an idea seeker. Like, I've stolen tons of ideas from people that's made me a better person, a better coach, help my team become better. Yeah, and so, one of the things I encourage people is by being an idea seeker, make sure you record them. I have idea journals. So if I hear a great idea or how somebody said something, I encourage you, write it down, put it in a journal, capture that so you can learn from it and share it with others. Like I do a success thought every morning, and a lot of them come from just ideas I hear or in my journal, and I'll share it with people because I just want to try to help and inspire people.
Wow. And boy, you're a pro at this. You know how to you just bring it right on around and clip. And I'm like, okay. Coach Jim Johnson is our guest today, you all. Championship coach, but also a guru when it comes to effective leadership. We're going to take just a brief pause. And when we come back, I wanted to get into, I know this is a real thing. I don't know if they call it that, what I'm about to call it on the court floor at the practices. But when we come back, and I'm going to take a quote from J Mac when he said, I just kept looking over at he's talking about the basket. He said it was a big bucket. He was visualizing. Some of us know it as the art of manifestation. And when we return, I want to get into that art with Coach Jim Johnson. A lot of shows still in front of us. Don't go away. Great time to share out the broadcast. We'll be right back. All of our stories begin with either in the beginning or once upon a time. And for me, my story began pretty much, and this is how it was referred to for quite a while, a backdoor deal. I could be living in a different neighborhood, in a different school, with different kids in the same bedroom from day to day. And so it began to feel like I was moving through a maze. I was always the kind of kid who would talk to my imaginary friends. They would talk back. And I know now that it was a great thing because it was carving out a place for me to dream. A lot of us will say, well, I want to lose 10 pounds. And then down the road, we've gained it. Why? Because want comes like a wish list, but need comes with a plan. When you feel that power, that is your story, and you see how many paths it can light, trust me, there's nothing in the world that will make you say it wasn't worth it. Okay, well, we're back. Welcome back. Coach Jim Johnson is with us today. And before we went to break, I kind of gave you heads up that I wanted to get into the art of manifestation, visualizing, and all of that. A big piece in the training of young people's athletic prowess and that sort of thing. Talk about how you worked it and wove it into the work you did in your coaching and just in your life in general with your own dreams and aspirations.
Well, I'm going to start by, in basketball, the obvious is the physical because, you're playing a sport, right? And so early in my career, I spent a lot of time on, working on different plays and how to get my players in the best shape. And those are important, don't get me wrong. But the second half of my career, what I added, and I encourage all listeners, is that, remember, we're more than a physical being. And mental and spiritual are really important. So we spent a lot of time, we started to do imagery sessions with our team, and we did a lot with goal setting where we would share, we would come together at my house. We would do a team goal setting. So we had our team goals. And I used to give my team a quote. And one of my favorite goal quotes is, when you think it, ink it. And that means write it down. Are you writing your goals down? And then we also would teach them how to set their individual goals. But here's a key leadership piece is you need to meet with your people one-on-one to get clarity of what their individual goals and how you can synchronize them to help them with their individual goals in a team sport like basketball. So I think that was essential. And then we did, as I mentioned, imagery sessions, and we spent a lot of time on mental, where we're seeing ourselves. And I'll give you certainly J-Max, a great story, but I have another story. Actually, I have a player that right now, last year played for the Golden State Warriors. It was my last year. But during his senior year, we were down 3 points with less than 10 seconds to go. And his name was Anthony. And Anthony's driving down and he pulls up. He's going to shoot a 3-pointer to try to tie the game. And he gets fouled. So he gets 3 foul shots with like 6 seconds left in the game. Imagine you being that. Would you be feeling the pressure? I know I would.
Right. And
what
they're going to hate me if I miss it.
Exactly. We're down 3. He's got to make all 3 or we're most likely going to lose the game.
Right.
Doesn't Anthony step up, Lauren, and make all 3 shots, and we win the game in overtime? But here's the point. After the game, one of our newspaper reporters is asking Anthony about the game. And of course, he brought up that situation. He says, Anthony, you had 3 shots, less than 6 seconds to go in the game. You got to make through all 3 to tie the game. What were you thinking? He says, we did imagery sessions all the time, and then I took them and did them at home. I saw myself making those shots so many times, I knew I was going to make those shots. So that's the power of that mental manifestation. And that's why you got to see it in your mind as well as do it physically.
Absolutely right. I think about that when I watch like gymnasts and things like especially when they're on that beam and stuff. Yeah. I'm like, you can't even see it. But they must see it.
Yeah.
It's just amazing the power that we have. Now, here, we're going to pivot just a little bit. Here's something. I'm wondering if I'm one of the first to ask you this, but I'm sure I won't be the last because it is a hot topic and it's gaining traction every moment. I wanted to ask you what goes through your mind when you hear about the advancements of AI and you wonder, and you probably hear things about how they are incorporating it to make teams perform better and athletes perform better. And do you ever worry that the piece that only a human, I just got to keep it real, a soul, let's get, can bring to the table, that eye to eye, heart to heart, that connection that creates a Rudy moment or a J-Mac moment or any moment that changes the lives of those who are inside of that moment? What goes through your mind, Coach, when you see the advances? Anything on that?
Well, I'm going to give you an analogy of like a speaker that uses a PowerPoint. Okay. Is when you're speaking, the power of your words and how you can get people to embrace the stories or the illustrations or the points you're making is really powerful as a speaker. But most people, including myself, do have some type of visual, and a lot of times it's a PowerPoint.
Sure.
One of the things I talk to young speakers about, point should enhance your presentation, not be your presentation.
Right.
And so with that, same concept with AI. AI, I think, can be very beneficial if used properly. But I will give you a short little story. Many years ago, I was leaving my brother's home, and it was a graduation party for my niece. And I'm walking out, and they're sitting in the sunroom, and there's 5 girls there, and not one of them was talking. They were all on their phones. Now, for all I know, Lauren, they could have been texting each other.
Oftentimes they are.
Yeah.
Right across from each other. Right.
So that part I don't get. So I think the one thing that I will say about AI
that part
is that AI can really benefit us, but I don't think it's ever going to totally replace that human connection.
Never.
That's why I encourage people to make sure that building relationships, it still takes human connection.
It still takes it. I don't. The jury is not even out on that one with me.
Right.
I mean, come on. If that would have been the way it could have been, then why didn't God create us with a chip already in us? You know what I'm saying? So, wow. So let me ask you this. I've heard you refer to yourself as retired, and I don't know how true that really is, because is it possible to completely retire from something that is a calling? I'm sure even if you're coaching from the sideline, you're like, oh, I'd put that one in if I was him right now. He should have done the so-and-so play. So how do you scratch that itch now that you're retired? Are you retired, or are you semi-retired, or?
Well, I'm retired from one thing, but I think I encourage all of us is that I don't want you to retire from life. So
Right.
that making sure that you have things that you're passionate and you have a mission day in and day out. So, I basically I made a career change where now I speak full time. I also host a podcast called the Limitless Lounge, where we focus on helping young and emerging leaders. I've written a book. I'm contemplating writing another book. So I want to find different ways to contribute in just a different way. So, and I still mentor my former assistant, my JV coach took over for me when I retired, and I still mentor him. I just had lunch with him a couple weeks ago, and I will go over and watch some practices. I go to some games, and so it's never going to totally leave me. I mean,
Right.
it's something I was very passionate about. But I encourage people that retirement for me doesn't mean that I'm just sitting downstairs eating nachos and watching Netflix.
Right. Exactly.
I want to contribute as much as I can, and just about doing my different presentations and in various ways that I can help people is something that, I really want to have consistently a service mindset. How can I consistently serve others and make the world a better place?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. So, man, I had a good one. What was it? Man, I'm in the middle of a senior moment, y'all. All those things, they just creep up on you. I wanted to, oh, I know now. So, Coach Jim, when you are out there on the road, and you do a lot of this, speaking in the corporate realm and to entrepreneurs and that sort of thing, what would you say would be your top 3 tips to people who are solopreneurs, or have, those small remote businesses or whatever it is? Oftentimes we pass those articles and shows up on effective leadership because they're like, well, it's just really me and a couple VAs.
Yeah.
So what do you say to the people, anyone that has a business, no matter how many people, even if it's just you, what are your top tips for a great leader?
So I think one is that I think you need to take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, because I think we get caught too much in that, we got to put a certain amount of time into work, and sometimes you hear 60-hour weeks, 100 hours a week, but no matter how many hours I work, and I don't work as many hours as I used to, I always took care of myself, because it's very hard to, and it goes back to leading yourself. So that's something I really encourage people, is to take care of themselves physically, mentally, spiritually. Like I do various things. I have a gratitude journal. I meditate every day. These are some of them I picked up later in life. I didn't always do those. Well,
Right.
One thing I did do consistently is I always exercise. So I really tried to get enough sleep and take care of myself physically, but now I'm doing a better job in mentally and spiritually as well. Then the second piece is, as an entrepreneur, is you got to make sure you schedule. You got to be intentional, so that, like yesterday, I had my newsletter due. So I blocked out a 60-minute period where I was going to write it and then record it and make sure I send it to my manager that, puts it then, up on our website. So, those are things that I think sometimes as solopreneur, we forget that we have to be intentional with our schedule and schedule.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is even though you're solo, you do have to find ways that, whether it's a VA or like I have a small team. I have a manager. I have a couple people that do part-time work. But what I found is try as much as you can. And certainly I'm into self-improvement, but try to do the things you do really well. And and then try to delegate and get people to support you where you're not as strong. Like, for example, I do a video series. But I'm not a person that really wants to learn a lot about video. So I have a person that I've hired. He actually worked as an intern for me when he was in college, and he still works part-time for me. I do a blog every week, but I have a guy that puts it on our website. We talk every week. So it's almost like a mentoring session. And so I think that those are things that you got to figure out is what do you need to do that you're best at? And then find ways that you can, whether it's part-time work, as you mentioned, a VA, but taking away some of the things that really, because, I've heard this a lot. There's a lot of truth. Let's say, if you're making, let's say $100,000 a year, and I can't remember exactly what that comes out to, but it's something like, $50 an hour. Well, then you got to think about are some of the things in your life, are they $50 an hour value? Okay. If not, can you delegate it to hire somebody that maybe can do it for $20 an hour?
Right.
And so I think that's really important as a solopreneur, that you got to remember you can't do everything yourself.
Got that right. I'm glad I finally started picking that up
Yeah.
a couple years ago. Yeah, you got to loosen the death grip,
Yeah.
and really you just do, for a lot of reasons. Yeah, 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 yeah. One of the questions I want, you live in the community that you taught in, I mean, that you
Right.
coached in, right?
Yep.
So what's it like now when you run into some of those kids that were kids and they have kids that are the age that they were when you coached them?
It's pretty special. But I'm going to share a quick story with you. So I spoke to a business last month in California, and I flew in and I coached Lauren, a player at one of my earlier schools. So I periodically have touched base with him because I get out to California because my son and my sister-in-law lives out there. But we reconnected, but I reached out to him and said, "Hey, Tom, I'm going to be coming to California. I'm flying into John Wayne Airport. Any chance we can get together?" He goes, "Coach, I live 5 minutes from that airport. I'm going to pick you up from the airport and we're going to have lunch together." And he actually brought his two sons. It was really cool. So to answer your question, I think anytime, and it's something I really, since I've been retired from coaching, is really try to stay in touch with as many former players and, and just keep that connection, because there's nothing like, building relationships and keeping those relationships alive.
Constant reminders of all the, I just did a reel this morning. And so I feel it's a great time to tie it in right here. Not a shameless plug, but oh, well, it is. How important it is to celebrate your private victories, acknowledge private victories, those little things that just make you go, man, boy, do I love legacy. Boy, do I love purpose, and all the things when it all comes together, right? And speaking of things coming together, if you would like to know more, and I know you do, about Coach Jim Johnson and all of his work, the equity and inclusion, the motivational work he does, all kinds of things for your community, your corporation, you personally, head over to JJ Hoops at rochester.rr.com. And also, LinkedIn is crawling along the bottom. And there's another one, CoachJimJohnson.com. Now, we're going to take the liberty of dropping all three of those links inside of your comment section for easy access in just a couple minutes at the conclusion of today's broadcast. So, as we wrap things up, Coach Jim, let's consider this your Jerry Springer moment. So let's just say if the world at the end of Coach Jim's journey, if you could imprint one thing on the spirit of people that are left here to move forward, and you would want them to remember one thing about you, what would you think that one thing would be, and why?
I want people to remember me that I serve first. and that I gave first before I asked for return. And the other thing that I learned, it took me a while, but I encourage all our listeners, is with that service mindset, is I truly believe it does come back to you. It's certainly been manifested many times in my life. But I think I really encourage people not to keep score. You know, if I do something nice for someone and they never do something nice back for me, that's okay. Because you know what? That's how the world becomes a better place, is when we have that service mindset. And the last thing I mentioned before, but I really want to say it one more time, is that in this world, we are all people. We have differences, but let's respect each other. And because that's the right thing to do with each human being, is treat each person with respect, focus on trying to be a servant first. And you know what? You're going to have a lot of good things happen in your life.
You really will. Couldn't have said it better myself. So true, so true. And that's the thing about the truth, you guys. It will never change. And it will not change on us. So take that with you. And listen, join me tomorrow, God willing. I'll meet you out front at 8 a.m. on the front porch. So together we can create yet another illuminated conversation right here on Bathrobe Moments. Jim, Coach Jim Johnson, thank you so much. Please continue all that you're doing. Just amazing. Just amazing. You did a great job here today, and you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you, Glenn. I'd love to do it again. And God bless you and all the great work you're doing. Keep up your wonderful work.
Oh, thank you so much. Listen, you guys, get out of here, get out there today and do whatever it takes to find your highest self in this day. Tomorrow's another chance, but don't miss today. It is where we're at. And as I tell you every morning as we get out of here, I absolutely adore you. I love you. And there's not a damn thing you can do about it. See ya. Have the best day ever. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.